Hey everybody, Jeff here from Trauma Type. Today I am joined by a returning guest, Penzy from Schizoid Vision. Her channel is about schizoid personality disorder and other means in psychology and kind of fringe ideas that are not kind of go beyond the DSM-5. She also has MBTI skits like cartoons on her channel as well. And also Jalen from Jalen the Automaton. He kind of has a vlog that talks about schizoid personality disorder, amongst other things as well. Both the channels should be down below. Go ahead and check them out and subscribe if you like them. All right. How's it going, guys?
Going good.
All right. So I'll go ahead and just let you guys introduce yourself a little further if you'd like. Jalen, you could start first.
My name is Jalen the Automaton, but y'all can just call me Jalen. And you know, like was previously said, like I just have a YouTube channel where I just talk about topics. I talk about schizoid personality disorder, how it is with me, how it appears, how I experience it internally, and I kind of just use my YouTube channel to talk with other people and to let off ideas, opinions, and all that sorts of stuff.
All right. Very cool. I do think he talks about some interesting stuff, like a lot of like sigil magic and chaos magic. It's something that I messed around with without much luck a long time ago, though. So I don't know. I'd like to learn more about that. Penzy, you want to go next?
Hey, my name is Penzy. I have a channel called Schizoid Vision, and on the channel I explore all different realms of schizoid phenomenology. So I look into the theory behind schizoid personality disorder, and I also have some interviews now with people who are living with the experience of having schizoid personality disorder, and I also cover some MBTI stuff.
Yeah, definitely check out her channel. She interviewed me once on there, and I interviewed once her previously on this channel. Both are down below if you want to check those out as well. The main focus is going to be on schizoid personality disorder, which they both mentioned that they have, and I have something called avoidant personality disorder, which is very similar in nature. Just, I guess, the means to the end is a little bit different, if you will. All right. We heard from Penzy before. We'll go ahead and hear her story again about kind of like her schizoid personality in a nutshell. You want to go ahead?
Yeah. So when I was in my teenage years, I was having difficulties in relationships, particularly to do with setting boundaries, and also I wasn't really connecting with people on an intimate level, and so I went for counseling. But with the counseling, I didn't feel it was really hitting the issue. So then later on, when I was at university, I was studying cognitive psychology, and I went for a psychological assessment, and I was told that I was going to need a lot of psychotherapy. So I didn't hang around for the diagnosis because I was a bit afraid that if I got stigmatized, it might affect my future career. Like, I didn't know what they were going to diagnose me with. So so I kind of left it there, and then a few years later, I sort of revisited the realms of psychology. I was looking into Carl Jung with personality types and stuff like that, and I came across the schizoid personality disorder, and it made a lot of sense to me, and it literally described everything that I've been going through my whole life, and my feelings of isolation, why I couldn't connect with other people, why I couldn't get a mutual understanding with other people, and why I generally just wasn't integrating into group situations.
All right. And you said this is something you felt even before your teenage years, right? You said you even felt this as a young child, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for example, when I was in the playground, I would just play by myself, and I didn't feel any inclination to approach another child to play with them. I didn't really see any need for it because I was perfectly fine playing by myself. sometimes like the children, they will come up to me out of curiosity and they'll be like, what are you doing? And I say, well, this is what I'm doing. I'll be either playing a game by myself, or I'll be creating something. Like I might be like getting some grass and making a bird's nest, or like making something out of daisy chains, or just playing around, just something to entertain myself. And then they'll come in and they'd like want to play with me, and I was like, I don't mind. If you want to hang around, you can hang around. So I didn't mind interacting with the children, but I just had really no inclination to seek out social interactions.
Interesting. Jalen, you want to go ahead and give a description of your schizoid personality?
So, my story is just about the same. Like, when I was noticing like problems or whatever, I had went to a therapist, and like the description that they gave didn't really capture what I was going through. Like they were saying that like I had anxiety, but it wasn't really anxiety. You know, it was something else. Like it wasn't really, the problem wasn't really going into social environments and feeling scared and feeling anxious. The problem was really not being able to meld and really like connect with other people. That was really the issue. That's really why I had like the distance with others. Now, going like way back in the past, or whatever, like to my childhood, when I was a child, like, you know, I played with other people and I did all that sort of stuff, but I also tended to be more in my head a lot. Like I tended to be more like in my imagination. So like schizoid traits of that nature, like did play a part, like when I was a little kid, like in like kindergarten to elementary. Um, Once middle to high school hit, um, the schizoid traits dealing with like introversion and not being able to connect with others started to surface like a lot more. Like I was noticing that like I could talk and I could interact with other people, but there was always something that just didn't allow me to click and really just identify with the people I was hanging around. It was always like some type of wall or barrier to where I always felt like different or strange. And like I hung around like um, all types of different groups of people. Like when I was in middle and high school, like I was very freelance, but it's just like I couldn't connect, and things just got worse and worse and worse. And like during college, I just started like doing my own research into what I thought it was. And when I was looking at the diagnosis for schizoid personality disorder in the DSM-5, everything just kind of made sense from there. And now here I am.
All right, very interesting. And just for people at home who don't really understand the difference between schizoid personality disorder and avoidant personality disorders, they're both very similar. One's a cluster A, which is the schizoid, and one's a cluster C if you go by the DSM-5, which probably isn't the best. I think kind of most personality disorders are similar. They're just kind of on the spectrum somewhere. Both are very withdrawn, don't social interact a lot. The difference is that the main difference is schizoid personality disorder. They just kind of have a disinterest in talking to people. They're indifferent towards it. Where avoidant personality disorder, it's very anxious and fearful, and they do typically want socialization, but there's that fear that they're unworthy behind it. And anybody who's watching at home, you can go ahead and ask a question in the chat, and we'll get to them eventually. All right, I want to talk a little about a personality type. I know Jalen said that he isn't too familiar. He just tested on an online quiz. You want to tell us what you do know about your type?
So I know I'm introverted. Um, like I tend to be to myself, away from others. I know I have more so like an intuitive way of thinking. Um, I like sort of just figuring things out like internally, if that's what it means, and then like sort of finding solutions that way. Um, like with MBTIs, like I'm very much a noob, like a rookie. Like I don't really know a lot, but um, that's what I've been able to like piece together when it comes to my personality.
Yeah, I've watched some of your videos, and what I've seen on your topic areas is that you're very much on the philosophy, and you're into the subjective like nature of the universe, and you go like deep and you dissect ideas. Like instead of presenting ideas whole, you sort of break them down into smaller pieces. So that's like introverted thinking. And also, I've seen you using extroverted intuition, where you'll start with an idea and then you'll bounce it to another idea and you'll link ideas to other ideas. So you're creating like a network of ideas as you're going. So I have seen, from what I've seen, you've displayed the INTP cognitive functions, and also you talk about subjects like you bring up things like Nietzsche, and you've mentioned some other philosophers, but instead of talking just directly about one topic, you tend to integrate the topics with other topics and like sort of create your own take on it. And ultimately, you're doing your own personal, the way that you analyze it, the way that you deduct from it, deductive reasoning, basically. So that's how I've seen through my lens your INTP personality playing out on your channel.
Personally, I got an INTJ vibe, but I really wasn't looking to type him. I was just watching his channel, and he really talks about some cool stuff on there. I'd like to maybe get him on one day alone and definitely delve in that magic and stuff. Kind of want to see how that works. Penzy, she is an INFJ, as many of you may know. Want to just go a little bit deeper into that real quick?
Yeah, so I'm in the realms of introverted intuition most of the time. So what that is, it's I'm sort of a bit detached I'm detached anyway because of the schizoid personality, but I sort of live in a realm where like ideas and concepts like float to the surface of my mind, and it's like I analyze the different ideas and concepts that come into my mind as I go, and that's mainly what I'm doing most of the time. When I do engage with the external world, I engage with extroverted feeling. So that means that I'm very people focused. And first and foremost, my interest is going to be people above anything else. And I have introverted thinking in third, which makes me pretty analytical. So I tend to try to look beyond the surface of what's going on and also come to like logical reasons and conclusions, like for the things that I see, mainly related to people than anything else. And I think that sort of gives a general sort of overview of my cognitive functions.
Yeah, it's interesting having such strong FE. I know INFJs can kind of tone it down a little bit, but having something like Schizoid Personality Disorder, which is probably the least, people focused condition as you can probably think of. I always thought that was kind of an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, I think that the way it works is that, like, imagine if we instead of saying extroverted feeling, we say extroverted sensing, and imagine if you had a really high sensitivity to bright lights. So every time you went out into the sun, it was overbearing, and so you wanted to just get out of the sun and go back indoors again. So with me, it's not exactly a direct comparison, but with the extroverted feeling, I tend to avoid situations where I have to use it for a prolonged period of time because of the because I can use it well. It's not that I can't use it; I use it well, but it's just that it can be a bit like sort of too much.
Yeah, I
I
get
have
it.
a question. What do you think the difference between like a schizoid INFJ and like a non-schizoid INFJ would be?
Right, okay. So a non-schizoid INFJ would have an interest in making relationships and would have an ability to have intimate relations with someone. So they'll be able to sort of open up about their feelings and express that with another person. I'd say as well that with the INFJ, having the extroverted feeling in second, it's not just about feeling other people's feelings, it's linked to the full self system of the schizoid. I think with the INFJ, we're much more inclined to lose ourselves when we interact with other people, because we can take on the mannerisms and the sort of the mindset and the persona of other people to a degree where it's like it sort of takes us away from ourselves. So that's something that the only way you can really manage that is by not interacting with people. As soon as you interact with people, you're subject to other people's energies, and it can be I don't really know the words to describe it, but really, preferably, I prefer to be on my own, thinking my own thoughts, doing my own thing, rather than being like sort of dictated my actions by social conditions.
All right, so both of you are TIFE users, if Jalen's results are correct and everything. Can you guys pick up on the emotions of other people? Like if you go into a room and somebody's pissed off, does that kind of bounce off on you and you absorb it?
I can.
You can?
I can too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of null to that sort of thing. It's kind of interesting. All right, let's go ahead and move on a little bit. What's like the biggest misconception of SPD? Go ahead and start with you this time, Penzy.
Mm-hmm. I suppose the main thing is that people think that we don't have any feelings at all, and that we don't care about anything, and that our indifference is sometimes because we don't like people. But that's not really the case. I'd say that there are defenses that we have in place to protect us from other people, and so what people see of us on the surface, it's not representative of who we actually are. So being judged by the surface of like being indifferent or whatever we display on the surface really isn't really a good measure of getting to know who we are.
Mm-hmm. All right. Very cool. Yeah, that's something like a lot of personality types just get tied into as well. Not so much INFJs, but INTPs and INTJs. Jalen, what do you think the biggest misconception of schizoid personality disorder is?
I think the biggest misconception might be the difference between like more so just introversion and schizoid personality disorder. I think like a lot of schizoid people, they are introverted, but how can I put it? It's like most schizoids are introverted or whatever, but like just because, how can I phrase? I'm trying to phrase this right. Like I know what's in my head. So like a person being schizoid is different than a person being an introvert. That's what I'm trying to say. Like what's going on in their head, like how it appears on the surface, is not just going to be introversion. It may be something else. It may be schizoid personality disorder. So I think like the biggest misconception would be mislabeling.
Yeah. Have you guys ever taken the Big Five? I'm not a big fan of it, but I scored really, really low on extroversion. I was like 14 out of 100.
That was a 1.
1, really?
I scored like on extroversion. I scored like I scored a 1. Like with neuroticism, I was very low on neuroticism.
Okay.
But there's not really a lot that kind of stresses me out or whatever. So I guess that's why like I would have such a low score. I think my agreeableness and my openness were pretty high, and I think I had like a pretty mild conscientiousness maybe, but my extroversion was terrible.
Wow. What about you, Penzy? Have you dabbled with it?
It was a while ago. I can't really remember now.
Yeah, I remember my extroversion was pretty low at a 14. I thought that was pretty low until I heard a 1. I didn't know if you can score a 1.
Yeah, I scored a 1.
Wow. Conscientious was pretty high. My agreeableness was in the middle. My neuroticism was pretty high, like in the 60s or 70s, and my openness was pretty high. All right. What would you say are some unknown benefits of having?
You're scrambling. You're scrambling. Your sound.
My audio?
Yeah.
Is it still doing it?
A bit. Can Jalen, how does it sound to you?
It sounds fine.
Oh, maybe it's just me. Okay, Kevin, I can hear you still. Okay.
Okay, hopefully that doesn't interfere too much. We'll
It's
go to
better
Mamu.
now.
We got a question. Okay, cool. We got a question here from Mamu in the audience. Most psychologists have never treated SPD. Does the lack of specialists regarding the subject concern you? We'll go ahead and start with Jalen this time.
It kind of does, because we don't really have like a standard approach as to like how to specifically like deal with schizoid personality disorder. So you kind of just like thrown out there like with the wolves, and you kind of have to figure out coping mechanisms to your best ability. Then like a lot of the research that is being done is new, so like there are some. I do see that like there is some problems like with that like occurring. So to answer your question.
What about you, Penzy?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times treatments are trial and error, because I think that in general it's difficult to get treatments that focus on people's specific state of being. So they have to use sort of general techniques. And when it comes to SPD, I think a little bit it seems that it sort of got pushed like to the corner of psychology, in the sense that, for example, in the DSM-5, they're saying that people with SPD don't seek treatment. But the reason why that might be is because a lot of people with SPD don't get an accurate diagnosis in the first place to know that they have SPD to seek the treatment. And the ones that do get diagnosed with DSM-5 criteria tend to be people that are far gone along the spectrum. So there's a lot of different issues.
Yeah, like it seems like your guys' diagnosis is pretty straightforward. Like I was in therapy and getting treatment for years and years, and they never gave me the avoidant personality disorder diagnosis until I had a court case with my son, and I had to get diagnosed through a licensed psychologist, like a psychological evaluation. That's kind of where it came upon me, and like, wow, I scoured the DSM-5 for years trying to find something that fits, and it actually fits. But I still had that undiagnosed autism floating around. I'm pretty sure I have it. I don't think I need an official one, but all right, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, Mamu. I appreciate your participation as usual. Jalen, we'll go with you this time. What do you say there are some unknown benefits of having SPD?
Some unknown benefits of having SPD. I think, like having a personality disorder, like there are some negatives that come with it, but like the different experience that you have, like with yourself, can yield like some creativity. Like it can lead to you doing some unorthodox, unique things. Like with me, it's magic. Like not a lot of people, not a lot of like normal people, like practice that sort of stuff. But since I have a different internal world than most people, like that's something that can easily be brought about. Not saying that normal people don't practice magic, but I'm just saying that, um, like having a different mental experience, like I said, it can lead to like creativity, coming up with unique solutions, unique coping mechanisms, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely gives you a different perspective on things. Penzy, what would you say are some unknown benefits of having SPD?
Um, I just genuinely just think of it in terms of not getting caught up in social like drama and social issues, and also not feeling that you have to live according to the sort of commonly held life script in society. So a lot of times when people conform to society standard, it's because of their friend, like wanting to make friends, wanting to please their family, and yeah, along those lines. So when you have that social pressure taken off you, and you don't care whether you conform to society or not, it does bring about a lot of personal freedom.
Very cool. Mamu has another question. She asks, what things do Penzy and Jalen have in common besides being YouTubers? I don't know how well you guys know each other, but I guess I'll let you start, Penzy. What do you think you have in common with Jalen?
Um, Open-mindedness. Like Jalen's like very open-minded. I think we have that in common. Also, Jalen's willing to think about taboo issues and things that the rest of society might find like uncomfortable. That goes along with the open-mindedness that he's quite flexible in his thought process. I think we have that in common. Um, we're not actually friends, like so. I don't know everything about Jalen, but that's what stands out to me anyway. Most yeah.
I think one thing, like just one that we do share is like when I'm looking at her videos, like a lot of stuff does cover like more so the core um, schizoid material, but she also is not afraid to go into
Mm.
more deeper like psychological elements. Like there's one video that I saw that was referencing a never-ending story, and that video
Mm.
got very deep into um, like schizoid, like one schizoid experience. Just having things in your hand and like them just failing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I wanted to say as well that this is back to cognitive functions and personality types. That what I've noticed about Jalen is that he's more able to express his personal thoughts in a way that I more like, and I think it's because he's a introverted thinking lead. He comes across a lot more personable in that way when it comes to expressing his thoughts and his views and the angles that he has. Whereas with me, it's like I find it hard to sort of put my thoughts out there. My thoughts are sort of more sort of still held back. I do want to share more thoughts in future, but at the moment I find that like when I go to communicate about schizoid related issues, it just keeps going back to the theory most of the time more than from my personal experiences. So I think that yeah, it's going to take me a little bit longer to distill my personal thoughts on this in terms of like my own inner experience.
Okay, very cool. All right, we got one more question from the audience, so go ahead and knock out one of mine, then we'll get to Norman's. We'll start with you this time, Penzy. How do you? Well, we talked about this before on the first time, so if you guys want to hear more about it, you can definitely check out the interview I did with Penzy. How do you think your SPD developed?
All right, yeah. So I was in that incubator when I was born for a month, and I think that interfered with the process of me bonding with my mother. So, um, yeah, I could just only assume that I probably didn't really get any sort of real affection or nurturing during that time. So my connection with humanity um, never got off to a flying start.
Yeah, there's a lot of experiments and stuff like that, like Russian orphans and stuff that were just locked in cages during their infancy and childhood, and it wasn't very pretty
Mm.
the outcome. Jalen, what about you? How do you think yours kind of developed?
Um, like in kindergarten, like I was to myself, so like that was settled in, and I would just be in my own head. So like being with other people, like it didn't really matter that much. Like other people were there, and I had friends, but like a lot of my energy and a lot of my time and a lot of my fun was like to myself. Doing workbooks by myself, like that sort of stuff.
Mm.
And over time it just got to a point to where being by myself seemed to be the safer option. um, I just really couldn't trust other people, and like that's just how it was. That's just like how it settled for like a long time until now. But I think that's how it developed. Just it was introversion, and then like that extreme introversion just kind of became justified, like with experience after experience.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Got a question from Norman. What do you guys consider? Would you guys consider having therapy at this point in time? I think you guys said that you've been in and out of it. At least Penzy did. Jalen, let you start first.
Mm.
Um, if I go to therapy at this point, it would have to be for like a very um, specific reason. Like I might go to therapy for, I don't know, maybe depressive episodes or something like that. But um, for my personality disorder, I don't really think I would go to therapy for it at this point. I don't really see it as something that um, I can't go on. Like I don't see it as something that is impossible to live with. Like I'm kind of comfortable, like living from this point on with it. So I don't really see therapy being. Personally, I don't really see it being useful in that regard. Like I would have to go for other reasons.
All right. At least you're at peace with it. That must be nice. What about you, Penzy?
Well, when I went for therapy, and it was many years ago, it was just counselling. So it was just like a talking sort of therapy. So I didn't really count it as being really very therapeutic at all. And since then, I've just been working on myself and trying to work on my weakness and trying to increase my strengths. So I find that taking it into my own hand is working okay for me at the moment. So it's not something that I'll consider.
Okay. Thank you, Norman, for the question. I appreciate it. I think we're on you, Jalen. How would you compare SPD to AvPD, avoidant personality disorder, or a similar disorder?
Um, so you say like your AVPD is mostly based on like feelings of inferiority, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, like with me, like with my schizoid like personality disorder, like it's not really like my introversion and me staying away from people isn't really um, based on feelings of inferiority. Like for me, it's mostly just safety. Like I feel more comfortable being to myself. Like um, I'm just a lot more stable. So um, that's like one difference that like I would point out.
What about you, Penzy? I know, like schizophrenia, a lot of people speculate that it's kind of on a continuum of schizophrenia. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I would say that so the original question was about the difference between SPD and AVPD. Yeah.
Yeah, or a
Right.
similar disorder.
Right. Okay. So I agree with what Jalen said, and also I'll go on to say that there's not really any fear of people. Like there's not really an anxiety of being around people. I think what is about a misconception of schizoid personality is that people think we might be really uncomfortable with people, but because of the schizoid defense, we've adapted to put up barriers when we're around people. So we're not gonna really get uncomfortable. Like in fact, we could probably spend time with people who other people might find obnoxious, but because we're disconnected, we're not gonna really feel the negativity of the consequences as much. Once our defenses go up, you know. And when you talked about extroverted feeling and being around people, it's like the barriers. Like the more obnoxious someone is, the more barriers I would have to put up when I'm around them, and that's where the drainingness comes in. Trying to sort of manage like that. Kind of explain to. Does that make sense? Or do you want a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think I get it. Yeah. Um, we'll go ahead and talk to Norman here. He has another question for you guys. What does your family and friends, if you have any, think about your SPD? We'll start with you this time, Penzy.
Right. Well, my mum knows about it. She hasn't really given me a lot of feedback. I'm not sure she really understands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I haven't really discussed it with anybody else. Um, I really don't know because I find that I don't really get a lot of feedback from people, so I really wouldn't really know how they feel.
What about you, Jalen?
For me, the only person I've ever really told is like my mom, and she has her opinions on it or whatever, but I haven't really told like anybody else in my family. Like honestly, not that many people know about it.
Mm.
Okay. Does your family and friends know about your YouTube channels, or is that kind of like a double life like I live?
Um, like they know I have a YouTube channel, but I don't think they've seen my videos though. Like my sister and my mom know, but that's about it. I don't think they've looked at my content though.
Yeah. What about you, Penzy? Does your family know?
I think they know, but I don't know what videos they've seen and what videos they haven't seen because they don't communicate. They don't communicate to me, so I don't really know, like if they know about the schizoid videos or if not. But if they do, they're not saying anything. So
Okay. Cool. All right. Jalen, we'll go with you this time. Then we have another question from the audience after this. What reaction do people have towards you being aloof and quiet? Do they kind of like wonder what's going on with you? Are they scared of you? What's your experience?
Like my aloof and my quietness, like a lot of times it gets judged as like sort of like a minuscule like a minuscule amount of hatred. Like it gets interpreted as that. Like when people see that like I'm away from them and I'm not around them, they like interpret it as like I don't like them. Like that's how it was when I was in college. Because when I was in college, like um, I stayed in a dorm with like other roommates. Like I was in my room most of the time, but I still like was around them, and like they would notice that, like if they would notice that when they were in the living room, I was in my room. If they were out going somewhere, like I would not go with them, and they interpreted that as me not liking them, but it's just I don't really mess around with um, group activities that much. So like that's one misinterpretation that my aloof and my quietness like have like in regards to other people.
Okay. What about you, Penzy?
yeah, well, I'm not really big on greeting people in public. So like for example, like if I was like to go to the gym and there's people that I see regularly, I don't address them. Like I just sort of just walk past. I don't say hello or anything like that. And they know that I know who they are, but I just don't greet anyone. So for that reason, I think sometimes people start to have a negative sort of energy towards you because they feel that maybe you think you're stuck up, you're too good to talk to anyone, blah blah blah. That you could be like a snob or something like that, but it's not because you're snobbish. It's just because of the condition and the barriers that it's very difficult to extrovert yourself. And even if you're just saying hi, yeah, it's like it adds up. If you say hi to every person that you recognize, that's a lot of highs, and that's a lot of energy. And then after that, people would then expect you to engage in some sort of conversation from time to time, and that's more expectations, and that's even more energy required. So by not initiating relationships in the first place, even though people might start to have a negative perception of you, it cuts out a lot of sort of small talk and unnecessary interactions that aren't leading anywhere.
All right. I don't know if you guys ever had this experience, but like you said, like you running the same people over and over. I've had people just come up to me, mostly like ESTJs, mostly like they get so mad because I don't like follow, I guess, like the customs of the people and have like this little small chat, and they're like, how come you never say hi? This is how you're going to do it. Hi, how are you doing? I am good. How are you? And they would just like sit there and lecture me and stuff on it. You guys ever had that experience before?
Not that extreme, but I have had people be like, "Oh, she never like says hello to anyone. She never talks to anyone," you know. But I think maybe because I'm a female, they sort of let me off. I don't know. Like, I don't know how it works, but no one's been like sort of on at me. Maybe they don't want to upset me. They might think get upset or something. I don't know.
I just don't emote a lot, so like a lot of times, like people will see it weird that I don't emote in certain situations, but it's just like I just don't find emoting, like the normal amount of emoting that everybody else does, is like necessary, because like I look at it as like, okay, if I do this, then like what's gonna happen next? You know, like I'm not gonna get anything out of it. And what most people want out of emoting, like I just don't see it as like it's just not worthwhile to me. So
yeah, I'm the same way. It just doesn't seem very genuine. Like, how come you don't smile more? Like, I don't know. Why don't you make me smile? It's a question. Why don't you put more effort into it besides all the cliche stuff, I guess? All right, we'll go to some questions from the audience here. Mamu again. Schema therapy and psychodynamic therapy have had good outcomes for SPD. I'm not too familiar with either of those modalities. If a psychologist knows SPD, some people try EMDR. How do people get the courage to do 1 year therapy? Well, it sounds like you guys weren't really in therapy, but I've had plenty. I guess I could answer this because I've been in therapy so long. I don't know. I don't have any experience with schema or psychodynamic therapy, so I don't know. But I've definitely done EMDR, and EMDR is very tough. For me, it's just really just trying to find some relief. And I have a 7-year-old son, so I definitely try to, I guess, be functional enough where he can have somewhat of a normal life, and hopefully he doesn't develop any personality disorders. For me, it's just, I guess, out of desperation, really, because I had a pretty low quality of life, but slowly starting to kind of break that ice that's surrounding me, I guess. That answers your question. I don't know. Do you guys have any input on that, or?
No, I just imagine that it'd be quite individualistic. Like, how do people get the courage to do 1 year of therapy? I suppose they'd have to just really want it. I suppose get to the point where their life maybe is manageable, so they just feel that it's an option they need to take.
It
just seems like a lot of time. That's all.
Yeah, it's a commitment, that's for sure. And I think most people with SPD are pretty content with it. They don't really see anything wrong. Where someone with AvPD, it's kind of agony not having that social interaction, but then it's agony having it. So, yeah. Okay, we'll go to Norman. Do you guys find that some people try to manipulate you into certain actions? For example, hanging out with them in regards to you coming across very introverted? Jalen, you have any input on that?
Yeah, I do. And I think like that's a good question, because like it kind of ties off into like a lot of other things. Like with the question itself, like yes, I think people like do try and manipulate you into doing certain actions. That's mainly because of like the like the wrong perceptions they have of your introversion. So it's just like, oh, you know, like you never hang out with me, you know, you must hate me, like that sort of stuff. But like people, like for me, you know, people try and get you to do a lot of like conforming things, you know, like courtship, going out to parties, like all that sort of stuff. But it's just, you know, I just don't do it. You know, it's just not me. So it can go into like that question can go into like a lot of different avenues than just the question. So it's really good.
What about you, Penzy?
Yeah, I think when you're generally very quiet, people can think that you're a bit of a soft touch, that like you know, that you're going to be just like easy, you know, because if you was a strong person, you'd make a lot more noise, you know, and they sort of judge that quietness equals weakness, which isn't true. And then when they find out that you're not easily manipulated, they can get quite sort of angry about it, because it's just because it falls short of their own like expectations, that they've got it wrong. Um, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, just for me to chime in here a little bit on this question, it is a good question. Like, yeah, people try to manipulate me or coerce me. Like, I was sitting there, like the people coming up to me, like, how come you don't have a conversation? And this is how you do it, and that sort of thing. But I'll have people talk to me like I'm stupid. They think I'm stupid because I'm quiet, and they kind of patronize me. And like, well, do you want to go hang out with us at this restaurant or something? Like coworkers or something? Like, I know what the hell you're saying, and no, I don't. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Norman and Mamu. We probably already answered this question, but I'll go ahead and touch on it anyways. Have you guys found any effective or found anything effective to finding relief for SPD? But it didn't sound like there's any neuroticism tied behind it anyways. Penzy, we'll start with you.
I think working on communication skills was a big one for me. Like when I was younger, it was a lot more difficult for me to like set boundaries and things like that. So I think in communicating what your boundaries are, I think is useful for someone with SPD, especially like with the last question, when people might be coming to manipulate you, to take advantage of you, etc. Being able to communicate, I think, is a big step forward, something to work on.
What about you, Jalen? Is anything effective, kind of at least maybe made a little easier to get through life having SPD?
Sort of the same thing, like with communication and like with philosophy and all that sort of stuff, like being able to find ideals and values that I have that are useful, that I can identify with to establish that, like I have a sense of self. So being able to have like and create a sense of self for me kind of was a big help, because it allowed for me to have like a true identity when communicating with other people. But it's not just communication for me. I also like work out a lot, so like that fills up the day, and it allows for me to track progress on something, and for me to have like a sort of a long term goal. Like, of course, it's not really a super big like long term thing to track, but it's something to keep your mind away from like just useless thoughts, that sort of thing.
Mm. Yeah, I find that the gym, it also helps with like they can have a lot of sort of inner tension building up, because of I find that with like the alexithymia, that even if I'm not aware of what I'm feeling, or I can't label it or give it names, that there's definitely sort of like an energy inside that needs to come out. So like I find that with physical exercise, it helps like to be a channel for like energetic release, and also the goal setting thing as well. I think that it's valuable to feel that you've got an objective measure of your progress forward.
Yeah, I used to be able to manage my exercise with depression until, I don't know, like I got COVID and went to night shift at the same time, and I think they both kind of mess with my body, and I can't so much anymore. This is something I thought I wrote down, but I didn't. I want to talk to you guys about your hobbies, especially the magic. Has magic helped you at all with like your social deficits or lack of thereof? Just I guess your perspective.
Um, like my magic, like I've kind of talked about this like in a past video or whatever. Like I'm pretty much in the Bible Belt, like of the U.S. So like being a magician or whatever, socially, it's just not really like the way to go. But for me personally, magic has helped be able to self individuate, like working with spirits. Like I use a psychological model, but um, working with spirits and working with archetypes, like in a ritual setting, has sort of helped me be able to identify parts of my own self. So that has helped. Um, so, and also just noticing like weird things in reality, like chaos magic, sigil magic, all that sort of stuff. Like, you doing the work and then seeing weird results afterwards. It's kind of, I just find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Any weird hobbies for you, Penzy, that kind of maybe like helped you or just kind of maybe developed because of your SPD? Besides maybe YouTubing about it, of course.
Mm, no, I don't think so. I done a lot of reading into cosmology and stuff like that to sort of get to broaden my perspective of life so that I wasn't just thinking in terms of society and the here and now. And also looking into like the evolution of humankind, like, and the journey that people have taken over the years, just to just broaden my perspective so that I just don't get stuck in my own sort of mode of thinking and thinking that where I am is all there is. Because sometimes like I can feel very disconnected from the outside world, and it can feel like there is no outside world sometimes, and it's like I can be very much like sort of lost in space. So by keeping in mind, yeah, what other people have done, are doing, and how the world is functioning around me, I've created like an internal template which I can draw on so that the world inside my mind is as representative as I can get it to what is actually out there, even though I can't actually connect with it.
Well, I'm muted. There we go. All right, very cool. Got a few more questions from the audience, so we'll go ahead and get to that. I appreciate the engagement. Really appreciate your answers on the topic that does not get much public awareness. Some SPD people avoid everyone. Any tips for them? Penzy, we'll start with you.
It depends if they want to avoid everyone or not. I mean, if they avoid everyone and they're happy avoiding everyone, then I don't know. But then if they're not happy, then I suppose they need to know what are the reasons why they're avoiding people, and to look into that, and whether it's if the reasons are justified or not. So I would say yeah, that would be it.
Got anything on that, Jalen?
I think when it comes to like avoiding people, like if you feel that, like Penzy said, like if you're comfortable doing it, do it. But for me, it's a problem when it interferes with your own Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like when it's interfering with you living day to day. So like you have to be, I guess I would say, just be liberal and figure out when it's a problem for you, because there are times when you have to interact with other people to get your needs met and get your wants met. So you gotta just be able to differentiate between when you're isolating yourself out of comfort, and when your isolation becomes a problem.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have your family at least. A lot of people with SPD, I'm sure, just kind of by themselves, and like it or not, humans are a communal species, no matter what disorder you may have, and you kind of do need other people to an extent. All right, we got Norman. He has an interesting one. What would a house of 12 schizoid look like? Say 6 male, 6 female. What would you say, Jalen? Probably very quiet, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it would be like the most quietest house ever. Like you could hear pins drop or whatever. Like I don't really know, like I don't really know what to say. You know what I'm saying? Like um I think every room in that house would be like very unique. I will say that. Like there would be like a very unique design to like each room. You know what I'm saying? Like on that, like the outside of the house, like of course like the outside of a house like has like its own design or whatever. But like once you go into the house, you look at like each person's room, it'll be like you going into like the portal of like another realm or whatever. Like each room is like its own realm and its own like environment or whatever.
I think most people with SPD are intuitives probably, but there was one that commented on the video that me and Penzy did, and he said he was an ISTJ. I'd like to definitely hear his perspective. What about you, Penzy? What do you think a house of 12 schizoid would look like?
Well, it sounds good off the bat. I think that they would live well together. I think there wouldn't be any arguments taking place. What I would do if I was in the house, I would designate a talking room, so that if you want to have communication and conversations, you go in the room so everyone knows off the bat that if you're in that room, you're good to talk. Do you know what I mean? And I think there'll be a lot of philosophical and theoretical conversations taking place. I just see a lot of respect for other people's privacy and boundaries. I think that we're schizoid individuals because we value our privacy and we respect other people's privacy as well. So I think with that, really, it'd be good if everybody would probably get on. I think the only biggest argument would be over like housework, and like practical chores and stuff like that, because maybe I don't know how they would organize that so everyone does their fair share.
Good question, Norma. Maybe you should pitch that to a network and maybe someone will make a reality show out of it. Who knows? All right. About to wrap this thing up here. What is something you would like everyone with SPD or people who suspect SPD know? I think we'll go with you, Penzy. I forgot where I left off.
I would say that I don't think of anything else. Just like give it another day, no matter what's happening. Just give it another day, because sometimes it could feel like you don't really want another day, but just give it another day anyway. Do you know what I mean? And be sort of prepared to like learn and grow, because it's like wherever someone is in their life, they can always like sort of develop to like another phase. So it's just more just not sort of giving up on yourself, really, I suppose.
What would you say, Jalen? Would you like someone with SPD or somebody who suspects having SPD? No.
If you suspect having SPD, like I would say, don't be afraid to research and go deeper. Like get outside opinions, and if those outside opinions don't seem valid, don't be afraid to question them. If you do have SPD, like I would probably say, don't be afraid of your difference, because even if you're the type of person that has like, quote unquote normal mental health, like you'll still have, like, everybody has problems. Everybody has like, BS that they go through like on a day-to-day basis. So you have an SPD doesn't make you like below human or some alien. Like you have as much of a right to a human experience than just as much as like everybody else does. So I would say like don't look at yourself as low because you have it. Like you're just as human and you're just as worthy as everybody else.
We all have different experiences and they're all valid. All right, Jalen, what would you like everyone to know about you personally?
Darn, know about me personally. Like with me, like having a blog, like it's like a lot of the stuff, like there's a lot of stuff that I've covered, like I don't really, there's not a lot going on. Like, I guess I would say, if I wanted somebody, like if there's something that, I wanted people to know about me, I guess it would be that, I mean, there's like, I'm a very vivid person. I'll say that. I guess that's one quality, but there's a lot of stuff that I've already talked about. So if y'all are interested, y'all can look at the content. So.
Yeah, it's Jalen the Automaton and Penzy's is Schizoid Vision. They're both down in the description. Check them out. Very good channels. Penzy, what would you say you would like somebody to know about you personally?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Really, ultimately, like I don't really want to be known personally, really. I mean, I'm trying, but I think really if I could just be sort of invisible and just watch everybody in the world and nobody could see me and nobody knew I was there, that would just be great.
Yeah, I imagine that sometimes myself. That'd be pretty nice. At least be able to turn it on and off. All right. Well, if you want to know more about Penzy and her, I guess, style, go ahead and check out Schizoid Vision. Like I said, Jalen has Jalen the Automaton, both down in the description below. That's about all the time we have. I thank you, Norman and Mamu, and anybody else in the audience that was just observing. Any last thoughts you guys like to give out before we go?
No, not really. I
No.
like being on, and I really like the discussion that us three had.
All right. I thank you guys for coming on, and everybody out there, thank you for watching and have a great day.